How beautiful is it?
It's stunning.
Let's say that if we had just wanted to make a simple piece of furniture, like this, we could have used London Fume instead of Ruggine Magica, and it would have already been really cool. I really like it a lot. Of course, it still needs to be finished, the wood needs to be protected and nourished, and above all, we need to bring out the real rust. The advice I can give you right now to avoid running into future problems, if you're not 100% sure you've always used Ruggine Magica, super well diluted. Sorry, mixed properly. Well, it's better to give it a light sanding, not because it needs to be smoothed, quite the opposite, because the more rustic and textured it is, the more we like it. But if you're not 100% sure that it was always mixed perfectly, so the percentage of adhesive, resin, and iron pigments are all perfectly blended into a flawless cream, what happens? By lightly sanding the surface, we slightly remove the resin's protective layer and expose the metallic pigments, the iron, underneath. So, it would become shiny, and this shine will interact with the acid, which will activate it. In other words, with the activator. Therefore, the more the iron pigment is on the surface, the quicker it will rust. Obviously, once it starts to rust, it keeps going, because the rust will continue as long as there's Ruggine Magica underneath, so it penetrates deeper and keeps progressing and spreading. You have to remember that Ruggine Magica, with the activator, can take up to 72 hours, so you can't just spray it and expect it to work in 10 minutes. It doesn't work like that. It's a chemical process, a mechanical one really, because 1 + 1 makes 2, and the acid causes the rusting. So if the iron doesn't rust, it's probably because it wasn't mixed properly. The metallic pigments are too deep underneath. The resin seals it, and the acid will take longer to reach the ferrous pigment. Some people have said, this little spray bottle seems small to me. No, this spray bottle is perfect for the amount of Ruggine Magica we're giving you. It rusts it to perfection. In fact, there's even more than enough, to be honest. In fact, I'm not going to use the whole spray bottle for this piece of furniture. So, all these little details are important. Please pay attention, because I want you to get an amazing result. Obviously, I'm not afraid to spray the activator. Even where découpages are, because they've been protected with 2 coats of sealant, they're dry and won't get damaged. Now I'm using my tool, which is brilliant with sandpaper. Like this, and I'm going to smooth the surface a bit, bringing out a bit of the metal. This is just as a precaution. Why not? If you want to do it, go ahead. If you don't want to, because you're sure you've mixed Ruggine Magica really well, then don't. Emma uses the other classic little sponge and gets into the corners where I can't reach, but without going mad over it. It's just a precaution. In some spots, as you can see, a bit of white might even show through, which is normal. It's the dark sand underneath, but that's not a problem. We like it, and that's exactly what we want. Just imagine how cool it would be if underneath you put, for example, some brocante. It would turn out absolutely gorgeous. So here, you'll be able to glimpse a few thin lines of white with the rust, creating an even more unique effect. Now let's start spraying. Obviously, if we leave the piece of furniture like this, standing on its legs, it will drip a bit, and so the rust drops will create an additional effect. I really like this. If you don't want it, you just need to turn the piece of furniture so that the area you're spraying is flat. I do this often. For example, we can take the piece and lay it on its back, and when we spray the front part, leave it even and flat. How much activator should you use? You need to cover the surface, not flood it, but also not use too little, like this. Obviously, as I mentioned before, remember that it drips. In a little while, in about an hour or so, it will definitely start. See here, it's already dripping. The first rust will definitely start to form, and we'll already begin to see some results. I assure you, this is more than enough. I had half a jar of Ruggine Magica left over, and I'm sure I'll have half a bottle of Activator left as well. You don't need to obsess over it. It's not that the more you use, the better it works. It's a super concentrated acid. You don't need a liter. You need a quality product. Let's carry on with the rest of the furniture. Magic rust keeps working until there's some underneath. What does it mean? It means that if the activator dries, it doesn't stop working, because by then the rust has already been activated. And as long as there's iron pigment, it will keep rusting. Obviously, since it's a wooden piece of furniture, it won't go deep. It's not like with iron, where it could create a hole in the metal. Here, once the metallic layer is finished, it will stop acting. But just because you don't see it wet, doesn't mean it's not working. The rust keeps being activated. I spray. Now, watch closely how the rust slowly activates. To say it's beautiful is
an understatement.
lovely.
It's very beautiful.
Let's lean it back a little. Can we manage it? Yes, because I want to pause for a moment on a few details. When we talk about Ruggine Magica, Alloro, and Cannella, we don't plan anything. So what comes out is always something different, surprising. This time, I knew that I absolutely wanted to bring together decoupage and rust. Yes, I knew. Also, because I wanted the wood on top. Of course, I knew all that. But I never would have expected that the rust would create such a perfect blend with the decoupage. So, we were clever to figure out which decoupage to use here. Yes, absolutely. But to realize that the rust would creep in so elegantly and subtly along the edges of the decoupage, this is rust. I mean, what you see up close is rust. And the remarkable fact that the acid from the activator gently ages not the decoupage itself, but the protective layer that has thoroughly sealed the decoupage is absolutely fantastic. If you look closely, you'll notice that the acid in some spots has created tiny flecks that work on the protective layer, oxidizing it, because this acid is an oxidizer. So I was expecting it, yes, but not like this. I was expecting it, maybe a bit more, not delicate, but maybe a bit more subtle. Instead, what came out was something striking. The advice I feel like giving you is, if you want to achieve such a clear, strong, striking result, absolutely use a light base, just as we did on the whole piece of furniture. Because applying the Ruggine Magica over a lighter color helps you get a lighter, stronger rust that really stands out. It actually roars. It's not your typical rust. If we had applied the Ruggine Magica, say, over a darker base, like dark green or black, it definitely wouldn't have been this light. So the color of the rust, yes, it does activate, but it changes a lot depending on the base. Because obviously, when you sand, smooth, and make various modifications. In this way, though, we've managed to bring out some lovely shades in certain areas. Because even on the sides, you'll see all the grain coming through. And the rust gets caught in the wood grain. We notice it even more in this grain, because there's a lighter tone. So yes, it was planned. We hoped it would turn out like this, but I didn't expect it to come out this well. We can give ourselves a pat on the back, right? This piece is really cool. It was worth hardly anything before. When people stress and say that it's worth nothing when they say that there is no antique value. But who said that to be worth something, there must be an antiquarian value? The value is not in the antique. The value is in the material. The value is in the historicity, in the emotional bond. And now, I can tell you the truth. It's really cool. And here we're talking about wood. Solid wood. Solid wood that we wanted to bring out, obviously for two reasons. First, because we liked the combination of raw wood with rust. We liked this vintage effect, but also carefully considered. And secondly, because such a beautiful grain absolutely shouldn't be hidden. What's more, I love the woodworm holes because it really has to look 100% authentic. There aren't any woodworms because here the anti-woodworm treatment was carried out, not with liquid, but with a machine that we use. It's a sort of microwave that we have here at the lab. And so, the treatment was done. And we assure you that these woodworms are gone. There are only the lovely little holes left, which really help to create a spectacular surface. And this is the raw wood that we've brought out. Now, we can't just leave it like this. We need to protect everything. So, let's talk about how to treat this wood, which is very beautiful because it's not new and therefore has a very dry, oxidized tone. And let's also talk about how to protect the rust. So, let's get started. As you can see, I'm not dressed the same as yesterday. I've changed. Why's that? Because it took some time. We sprayed the activator 3 times, and each time we let it work for many hours. Why is that? Because the rust can actually take up to 70 hours to be fully activated, and here. Obviously, that didn't happen because there's significant heating involved. The surface was warm and it was slightly smoothed. Everything that needed to happen did happen, 100%. It took about 2 days to get a result like this, because in the meantime, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday came around, so we just leave it here to work on its own. But in the meantime, it was sprayed before the weekend, 3 times. An important thing is this. Here we're not talking about rust on iron. So it's obvious that once the layer of Ruggine Magica is finished and everything is rusted, the rust stops. It doesn't have an iron surface underneath. It's a different story, though, if I spray the activator onto a piece of iron. I make it rust, and if I don't stop it, if I don't remove the air, it will keep going, and so it will continue to rust until it eventually gets holes in it. To answer some questions I've received over the past few weeks, where people ask me, can I do this on radiators? No, don't use Ruggine Magica on a radiator. Just imagine what might happen if we don't seal it properly. It doesn't stop, and it keeps working away until it makes a hole in your radiator. That is something we definitely want to avoid. This process of activating rust can also be done on things you have made of iron, not just by using Ruggine Magica on wood, obviously. But you must always remember that there are times when it's better to seal, so we seal Ruggine Magica on iron to prevent it from continuing to develop. However, there are times when you might not want to seal, because magic rust doesn't always have to be sealed. For example, you want to create a beautiful wall, a niche, a strip in the entrance of your home with Ruggine Magica. Why seal it? It could keep developing. It might change over the months. So at this point, on this piece of furniture, we're not going to seal the Ruggine Magica. We're only going to seal the top part of the wooden surface. So first we'll apply the Leggendaria Wax, and then the Restauratore to achieve a smooth, velvety surface, which is just lovely. Of course, when I get tired of it, and when Ruggine Magica underneath has done all its work, when the activator has finished its job. Because, after all, rust, once it starts, keeps going. It continues, it changes, and when it's perfect and I like it, then I'll seal it. Now I'll show you how to properly seal the top surface. Fine steel wool, mind you. Don't use the coarser one, because it could scratch the wood a bit more, and we don't want that. A good brush for the Leggendaria Wax, which is a very durable, highly protective wax, and I'm going to apply it over the entire surface. Obviously, to achieve a perfect result, you need to use a crossed brushstroke, like this. First, you go horizontally, then smooth it out, following the grain, always. Don't worry if the rust activator splashes a little onto the wood, because nothing will happen, but it could slightly oxidize the wood. In fact, if you look closely in some spots, you can see that the wood is slightly darker. There you go. That's what happens when the activator acid gets on the wood. And the question someone might ask me is, so can I spray the wood with the activator? Does it go dull or oxidize? If you want to, go ahead. Personally, I don't care, as I want this beautiful grain naturally. If you want to do it, just sand it back. It goes away. It's only on the surface. So, now I protect the surface with the Leggendaria Wax, first horizontally, and then smoothing it out, obviously following the grain. Last but not least is the use of steel wool, because it helps the wax penetrate even better into the wood fibers, and it makes it incredibly smooth. This is how it's done. Steel wool, and I gently massage it like this. I hydrate it, smooth it out, and allow the Leggendaria Wax to penetrate even deeper. And I really create a spectacular surface. I wait for the Leggendaria Wax to dry thoroughly and deeply. It can take a few hours, and if it's a bit colder, or you're in a cold place, it might even take a few days. Maybe if it's summer, if it's warmer. It really depends a lot on the temperature, the humidity in the air, the type of wood, and its condition. We can also apply 2 coats of Leggendaria Wax, for example. Of course, applying the Restorer afterwards really protects, nourishes, and creates a fantastic surface. To apply the Restauratore the best way possible, you need a brush, which can be the same one you use for wax and oil, and a lint-free cloth. So not the classic microfiber cloth, an old cotton shirt, an old soft wool jumper, an old sheet. Even flannel sheets are very suitable. What do? You don't just put it on directly like this. No, you apply the Restauratore on our brush, like this, just so. Don't use it on yourself, because it's so good, it feels like a face cream. It's fantastic. Afterwards, you spread a layer of the Restauratore on the wood, and polish it straight away. Be careful, because it dries quickly, like this. I make sure to spread it really, really well on a section I've chosen, like here. I continue. And now Emma, who has the white cloth in her hand, starts to polish it along the grain, very vigorously and very quickly. Right where we've applied the Restauratore. What the Restauratore does, nothing else can do, because its microparticles encapsulate both carnauba and moisturizing and polishing agents, making the surface velvety, shiny, protected, sealed, and closed. It's a whole different world. So if you really want to have wood that is 100% protected, do these 2 steps. Wax applied with steel wool and Restauratore, and it's sealed. Apart from the fact that just by looking at it, you can see a shine here that you don't have elsewhere. And now touch here and touch here.
Really different.
It was already beautiful, because the surface with the steel wool is lovely, but like this, it's perfect. But it's not just a matter of looks or feel, it's actually protected and sealed for the long term. Needless to say, it looks beautiful today, but if you look at it again tomorrow, you'll see it even more, because both the wax and the Restauratore will penetrate deeper. So we'll end up with a truly optimal result. Now let's spread it over the remaining slices of wood and massage it in very, very carefully. This way, all the wood is finished and protected. With a piece of furniture like this, we can't put on new handles, so we were lucky. 2 old handles turned up from our cauldron. 2 old little handles, a bit industrial, but also chic, because they've got this slightly bronzed and worn finish. If I had to use these handles in another context, I probably would have polished them, but not here. Here, there's no need to polish them. In fact, they look great as they are. So, 4 little screws, and off we go. Emma's already marked the center. Let's see your pencil mark here. And I'm going to place the center of the handle, more or less, here. Too cute. Perfect. So what are we going to do here with this really odd little board?
These are all the ways you can protect rust.
Because depending on how you protect it, it obviously turns out differently. Let's start from the fact that this is the original shade of this board, and it's much darker. As you can see, this is a very rough result, in the sense that we sprayed it once and immediately protected it to do our tests. So, on a very light rust, like the one on our piece of furniture, for example, it will turn out much lighter. But depending on how you protect it, the piece of furniture turns out completely differently. The more you use protective coatings that are satin or matte, the more you end up whitening it. The more you use waxy or glossy ones, the more you highlight them. And so, its tone comes out slightly darker, but more vibrant. So if we wanted to highlight this piece of furniture, making it slightly darker, we could easily use, let's start with the most difficult one, the glossy protective finish, which is
This one.
or the glossy protective coating, Signo Oro, which is
This one.
why use Signo Oro? Perhaps they already have it and say, I've already got it, so why buy another protective coating? I've already got this one to protect my gold leaf. I use that glossy protective coating, it's fine. Note that Signo Oro darkens quite a lot, unlike the regular glossy protective coating. It shines and doesn't darken all that much, whereas here and here, in this row and this row, we've got 2 other protective finishes, which are, Emma?
The satin and the matte.
Because actually, the more satin or mattifying agent you have in your protective coating, the more it whitens the surface, as it stays on top. So think very carefully, because the way you protect the furniture makes all the difference. What have we got here?
This is wax. In fact, it's almost the same as the base. And this is the water repellent.
Almost the same, because in this spot, there was very little rust, and it didn't react much. So, if one day I wanted to protect this piece of furniture, if I wanted to really bring it back to life, and make it a bit more vibrant and darker, I can easily use a glossy protective coating. The Signo Oro will make it even darker, and protect it in this very shiny way, whereas the glossy protective coating is almost invisible on the surface, but really brings it to life, while the satin and matte ones tend to make it look paler. So it's up to you to decide how to protect this piece of furniture. For now, I'm not going to protect it, because we're a bit mad.
We'll leave it as it is, because we want to see what it has to tell us.
First of all, I protected the part that gets the most wear. So, if this piece of furniture is going to be placed in the entrance of a house, perhaps in a living room, it can be used without any worries, because the top part has obviously been protected with Leggendaria Wax and by the Restauratore. Secondly, the lower part will experience normal wear, but it can't really be damaged because the rust is very resistant. So even if you use it, open and close it, handle it, it won't get ruined. So I'll leave it like this for quite a while and see how it is in a few weeks. We'll decide whether to protect it with a protective coating will depend on how the rust has finished settling, because rust doesn't just appear in half an hour. Stop thinking that the more you spray, the faster it works. It's not like that. Rust needs its own time to be activated and to do its job. And even now, although I can already see a lot of it, and it's very strong, I still let it work for quite a while longer, because I want it to finish its oxidation process. Now, let's set it patine, because a piece like this needs to be placed in context.
Let's go.
See you in a bit. This makeover is finished too. Finished?
Finished.
Like it?
Very much.
So, we wanted to show it to you in context, because in our opinion, when you have such unique pieces, showing you how they can look in a home is the key point. You often watch my tutorials and say, well, it's all nice, all cool. This technique is very particular, but will it look good in a home? You decide. We've set it in context here, to show how it looks on warm wood floors and against neutral walls. What do you think?
I really like it, and it works everywhere. In all homes.
Even modern homes need a statement piece to liven up the space. Modern is lovely, but you always need something personal. That's the special touch of this furniture. Without a doubt, it's the type of rust that has come out, which is very different depending on where it has appeared. Because in some places, the white comes through, in others it's darker, and where the hinges are, it's different again. But above all, the rust that has come out on the découpage. Now, that's truly a special touch. The acid and rust have naturally aged the découpage, making it look as if it belongs there. These pieces really do look like they were born there.
Beautiful.
Well done. We rarely say it, but this time it needs saying. So we'll say goodbye, and Emma will tell you where to find everything used.
So, you can find the products on the website www.magicpaint.it or from Italian retailers listed on the same site, so magicpaint.it. In the retailers section, you'll find a map of Italy where you can enter where you live and all the nearest retailers will appear.
They're also divided by region. As you wish. Anyone not listed isn't a Magic Paint retailer. Where can't they find it?
On Amazon.
No Amazon? Goodbye.
Goodbye.